WWT presents Partner Spotlight.
Hello and welcome to another Partner Spotlight brought to you by WWT Presents. My name is Jeff Fonke and I have responsibility here at Worldwide over our HPA practice, our High Performance Architecture team. We sit inside of our Global Solutions and Architecture organization within sales. And today I'm really excited that we're going to have a great conversation with our friends at Intel and my long esteemed colleague Matt Halcomb over here in the ATC. Why don't you, Radhika, take a quick minute and introduce yourself and then we'll jump to Matt.
Sure. Thanks so much, Jeff. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. I'm Radhika. I'm part of Intel's AI Center of Excellence. I've been with the company for almost a decade now, and worked on a whole lot of different products and solutions. And in this role, I really work closely with Worldwide in terms of helping lead the AI strategy and enablement. And obviously, they've been a great partner. So, looking forward to this chat.
Hey, everyone. I'm Matt Halcomb, Principal Architect here at Worldwide Technology, teaming with Jeff around something we're calling our AI Proving Ground. So I have the honor of leading a group of engineers inside of our Advanced Technology Center who are building out a number of different, up to about 13 or 14 different environments for our AI Proving Ground.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining me today. It's a beautiful day here in St. Louis, and I can't think of anything better to talk about when sitting in the ATC than AI, right? So that being said, I'm going to kick it off and just want to kind of talk a little bit about the things that our customers are seeing. The hype around AI is very real. A lot of the conversations being had, and really just kind of want to dig in and maybe ask a few questions to you guys. Really the first thing, when we look at what customers are doing today as it relates to artificial intelligence. Can you guys maybe elaborate a little bit around, the basic set of challenges that these customers are seeing and they need to be very aware of? Maybe Radhika, if you could kick us off with some of your thoughts, and then we'll jump to Matt.
Yeah, sure. That's a great observation, Jeff. And I think we look at it in the context of AI, right? I mean, AI is not your typical data center and IT workload, right? It's fundamentally different in how it's architected. We have these end-to-end AI pipelines that we know have a number of different stages, right? Right from data ingestion and cleaning to essentially building the models, optimizing the models, and then you're doing the inference of the deployment. So, in reality, these stages all need to be highly performant and they need to be interacting seamlessly with each other. So you need the underlying architecture to be able to help facilitate that in a seamless fashion, right? And so when you look at it kind of in this specific context, what we're seeing is, a few different challenges. I think the first and probably the biggest one I would say is complexity, right? These AI workloads are complex. And I think a lot of the enterprises who are kind of used to the more traditional kind of IT workloads underestimate a little bit of that complexity. And this comes not just from kind of having the data science knowledge and being able to execute on that, but also when you look at the underlying infrastructure that's needed, right? The variety of hardware and software options. I mean, where do you even start? And so I think that complexity kind of gets a little bit overwhelming. And we see that a lot with customers in terms of, how do we kind of get going on this? The second piece is, of course, cost. Right. And this, I think, is also another maybe underestimated piece. And this becomes more apparent as you kind of get out of those pilot phases and you start looking at large scale deployments. And you start scaling AI, cost becomes an important factor, which can get overlooked as well. The third piece, I think, is around what I call operationalizing AI, right? So what do I really mean by that? That's really about kind of moving from a small scale pilot deployment that you might have and now taking that and putting that enterprise-wide, right? Large scale deployments. That's a whole different set of skills and a whole different set of approach that you need to take. And, going from that tiny little POC or pilot stage into a large scale deployment, I think you need to kind of assess what are the requirements for that. And that gets overlooked as well. And then lastly, but definitely not least, I would say is, keep doing all of this while being compliant, right? Compliant with your data privacy policies, compliant with your security policies, and making sure you're always protecting your enterprise IP. So when you layer that on top, now you start seeing that, okay, all of this has to seamlessly work together. And these challenges, are real, just like the hype is real. Right. So I think it's important to recognize that and bring it together. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the activity.
Awesome. No, and we call that responsible AI, if you will, Radhika.
Indeed.
It's definitely one of those things that it's the wrapper that has to be wrapped around all things from an AI perspective. Matt, what about you? Talk to us about some of the challenges.
And again, the challenges that Radhika touched on, we see that as well. I think it's a communication challenge. You've had IT infrastructure who've been working with web developers who have a specific skill set and a specific need and a specific workload they're used to. And then they start building out the mid-tier application teams and they start working with their database teams, right? But each one of those were all independent efforts. And what they're quickly finding out that they have to include everyone in these meetings because there's different layers to the solution they're building, including their facilities teams, right? A great challenge that we're seeing with a lot of organizations that they're going out and buying some very heavy hitting equipment, we'll call it, right? And it adds a new challenge to their environment from a power and cooling standpoint that they're not ready for. They don't understand that the AI world isn't just one thing. It's not just training. It's not just inferencing. It's not just prompt engineering. It's not just data. It's all these things combined in an ecosystem that has to be looked at, like you guys both spoke of, from a security standpoint, from a data standpoint, from a what capabilities are available for me out there to help solve my problem. It's a challenging, complex world, even into Jeff, and we know this around consumption. So how do I build a cloud-like environment that enables an infrastructure team to manage the workflows appropriately while giving the end user, which could be a data scientist or a user, access to the necessary information and components and infrastructure when needed without putting the company's data at risk. It's a huge challenge for them all. And they don't even, I think at times that there's some organizations that know they're doing some AI inside the organization, but they don't know what challenges or what successes they've had. So the number one thing with us is just getting the customer to talk inside its own organization even.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's almost like they need a center of excellence. And I think that's an area, obviously, at WWT we help, and we've actually formed within our own organization to have that back-in and buy-in to bring all of these teams together, right, Matt? I think there's a definite need for that. So I appreciate the feedback from both of you there. I mean, let's dive a little deeper. And, we call this HPA around here, but let's talk a little bit deeper about, what high-performance architecture is, and why it's an integral piece of the AI ecosystem, if you will. And we know that these high performance architecture doesn't have to mean it lives in the four walls of a data center in your own private cloud, if you will. It can be in a public cloud or hybrid or across both. But Matt, maybe if you could just talk to us a little bit about HPA and what it means to a traditional IT infrastructure and organization.
Yeah. Again, it's not just a SKU, right? It's finding the right, we've talked about this for many years. It's finding the right solution for the problem you're challenged with. For certain levels, it's helping them understand around if they're doing generative AI with large language models, what large language models are you bringing in? What number of parameters? What's your data look like? Are you doing something called fine tuning? Are you using something called RAG? Can definitely affect the infrastructure requirements that you need. Like you spoke of, do I do it here? Do I do it there? Do I do it at both? I mean, and even Jeff, I'll even throw out there the third leg of the stool of cloud adjacent could be a viable option that some organizations should take a look at. So if they want to own their own infrastructure but leverage cloud to scale, have that ability to do so by doing it at a cloud location or building those necessary frameworks that they give themselves. They don't maybe architect themselves down a dead end road, but build a dynamic solution that can grow as the organization requires it to.
Agreed. Couldn't have said it better myself, Matt. I think, as we look, we know AI is not your typical IT data center workload. We have to be very mindful and cognizant of that. And, Radhika, Intel's obviously well positioned and no stranger to the space of high performance, right? Would you mind actually enlightening us and talk a little bit about how you see IT architectures changing over the next foreseeable future as it proliferates all areas of the business?
Yeah, indeed, Matt. You're right. Intel's no stranger to this area. We've, our Xeon processor, I think, have been synonymous with data centers for decades now, right? But the interesting thing, I think with AI, when you look at it, is like fundamentally, right, the type of compute that you need really depends on whether you're training or whether you're doing inference, right? And I think that's a fundamental difference. And when you look at training, right, obviously that's you're talking large billions of parameters models, right? And they're going to need that additional dedicated acceleration and horsepower to be able to get through that. But then how often do you do training, right? The fundamental difference comes, like, do you really need to outfit your data center with kind of these large machines, that are when you're going to be essentially fundamentally using them one-off, right? But when you look at inference, which is the part which is going to gain much more prominence because it's part of the deployment process and it's how you use AI, that's where you're going to see a lot of focus and energy being spent on, in terms of how do you now take what you have and actually use it. And historically, a lot of the kind of classical machine learning and other earlier AI workloads have really relied on Xeon for inference. And we see that continuing, right? Especially now when you look at the latest processors that have the built-in AI acceleration, definitely capable of handling those kinds of workloads. Now, can your legacy infrastructure run AI workloads? Maybe, depends, right? Can they run it in a performant and secure way and deliver the kind of performance, and the user experience that you need today? Probably not, right? Because times have changed, and we're looking, the legacy infrastructure was not built to handle that. So when I look at this, I see essentially a lot of change in terms of how that portion of the data center is architected, if you will. The second piece that I'll call out, which I think, we definitely see it in our day-to-day lives, is this concept of AI just being consumed everywhere, right? You talk about cloud, data center, edge, device. It's really going to be proliferating across the board. So our new architectures need to be able to handle that, right? They need to be able to be flexible. They need to be scalable. They need to be able to accommodate, vast number of users that may be accessing their applications from anywhere. So I think that's the fundamental shift that needs to happen to be able to ensure that we're able to address those universal needs, right? Matt talked a little bit about enterprises being able to use hardware in the cloud or infrastructure in the cloud and infrastructure on-prem, right? That's hybrid AI right there. Being able to scale that and expand and have that elasticity, I think, becomes really important. And I feel these are some of these factors that need to come into play as we look ahead, and look at enterprises that are trying to pull this kind of infrastructure together.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and we know, Intel is definitely at the core of all of those conversations. Matt, maybe you could talk a little bit about, the 5th gen Intel processors that we've got in the actual ATC. Elaborate a little more about, what we're doing there.
Okay. No, so as Radhika spoke about, right, I don't want everyone to think that every AI workload requires an accelerator that's called a graphical processor unit, or a GPU. The 5th generation Xeon Scalable processor out there has accelerators built into the CPU itself, fundamentally, accelerating AI workflows. So whether it's doing inferencing like Radhika spoke over, even some level of training can be done at the processor level. It does not require this super expensive, heavy power, cooling needed graphical processor unit. It can just happen. Leveraging a processor. And that's where we're trying to get people to understand, maybe take that upon them, leverage that themselves, and see for themselves inside of our AI Proving Ground that we have this technology available for them to go ahead and test drive that and see how that works for them.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty good segue, Matt, because my next question was, can you give us a little background on the history? What is the AI Proving Ground? What are we being used? What are we using it for? What are customers excited about? Give us the story on the AI Proving Ground. I know we're all really excited at Worldwide to have this differentiator. Can you elaborate a little bit about what that means for us and our customers?
So the AI Proving Ground, one, thanks to Intel and other great partners like that, is a collection of environments in which we enable customers to see the art of the possible. So whether it's leveraging a purpose-built appliance with multiple accelerators built into it, we have different GPU models. We have something called the Gaudi system in-house that Intel is a part of. We can do that from a composable disaggregated infrastructure environment. We have reference architectures from partners, great partners of Intel with HPE, Cisco, and Dell in play here. So it's our ability to bring a number of different technologies to the forefront, helping our customers understand what truly is possible, taking the guesswork out of it, right? We want people to make informed decisions. We want them to understand all the different concepts, and we try to simplify the complex out of here. So as we're looking at the different frameworks that are supporting the different LLMs, as we take a look at the different ML ops and AI operations components, as we look at different container platforms that can be leveraged inside of a reference architecture, and then down into the compute section of the different accelerators, whether it's a CPU, whether it's a GPU. And then, as you know, Jeff, a great subject of yours, storage, incredibly important. And then how do we connect it together with the networking components? Having that all together in a single environment helps customers make informed decisions. And that's what we're trying to do with the AI Proving Ground.
All right. Well, Matt, thanks for the update on what the AI Proving Ground is and how it differentiates us. Radhika, maybe you could talk a little bit about, the excitement around, I think I see it even at our CEO level with Pat and Jim, there's a lot of excitement and the investments being made. Maybe from your lens, maybe talk a little bit about, what you see as a differentiation at Worldwide with our Advanced Technology Center and AI Proving Ground within.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Jeff. I mean, to be honest, that's really my favorite part. I feel like at environments like the AI Proving Ground are exactly what customers need today, right? Especially with something as new as AI. And the reason is because, it really gives them kind of this quote unquote playground, for lack of a better word. They kind of bring in their workloads. They don't have to invest upfront. They're able to leverage the infrastructure and the software tools and capabilities and the expertise, obviously, that, Worldwide brings to the table to be able to see, how do these AI workloads function? What kind of hardware are they leveraging? Can I get the business outcomes that I wanted out of this, right? So it's really that environment that allows them to step away from kind of the production side of things and be able to use this as a proving ground. And in my mind, right, especially for complex workloads like AI, that is absolutely essential, and that's the reason why we've invested in an environment like that. And we believe it's absolutely necessary for customers to be able to expose to these technologies so that they can see what the latest infrastructure and and processors and other technologies bring to the table when it comes to AI. And kind of going back a little bit to what Matt was saying earlier about, you don't always need those heavy powered systems. And the analogy that I often like to use, right? I mean, you don't always need an 18-wheeler truck to go out grocery shopping, right? Or to run your daily errands. That is not something you're going to go pull out, right? So for that, your everyday Camry or your everyday Prius is going to get the job done just fine, right? But you do need your large 18-wheeler trucks to be able to haul large, large produce and large goods and services across the country. So, there's a time and a place for everything. That's the point, right? And I think places like the AI Proving Ground help customers understand that. Right. And we are big fans of it. We definitely believe in the value of it. And we know we're continually investing in making sure that that Worldwide has the latest that they can take out to their customers and be able to tell that story.
No, that's great, Radhika. And I would say, I love car analogies. I'm a car guy myself, but I think we use that analogy quite often. And from the Prius to the semi, whether you need a Ferrari or not, how do we power and cool it from a facilities infrastructure perspective? All of these things are things we're going to help our customers figure out. Ironically, we see customers actually going after and just buying to get ahead of a lot of the supply chain stuff, but they don't know what they're buying for. So another prime instance to really leverage our proving ground, the experts like we have with Matt and the teams and from the software and integration stacks. Those are all things that customers are definitely looking at getting their hands on and more experience with. So I definitely agree. We've been talking about a lot of stuff. We've dived into a little bit about what HPA is, the AI Proving Ground. Really kind of want to get in and just any open discussions, any closing thoughts or thoughts that you guys have around AI data and the things that we're doing from an outcome perspective together. Driving back into the high performance architecture. If you want to give closing thoughts, both of you, I'll let Matt you chime in, and then Radhika, you can go.
Yeah. So closing thoughts are, it's a whole new world. Your data center modernization has to be looked at in multiple facets. It has to be looked at from utilizing compute and storage and network fabrics that you thought would get you through this, that's not going to. It's the facilities from a cooling and powering standpoint that have changed, and you have to be more effective and efficient in what you're doing. And you want to add automation and orchestration. You're asking people to be more effective in what they're doing. These workloads are getting heavier and heavier, and when the requirements of what they need to be successful, and you're not going to do that and just add people. You're going to ask your people to be more effective and more efficient, more secure, right? And that can't be done on yesterday's technology. There's a whole fundamental change that has to happen from the infrastructure, from the process, and from the education and skill set of the people. And I think it's a very complex challenge that all of our partners are being challenged with today. And Worldwide and Intel together are there to help them along their path, whether they're just starting out in it or are they're elbow deep into it, but they're running into challenges that they can't get past the brick wall a little bit. We can bring the resources out to it. And I also want to touch on that when we're talking around AI, it's not just generative AI, right? The AI proving ground is set up to help at the security level with AI and validating different technologies and making sure that you're not injecting unsecure code into your environment and then developing code with LLMs, right? Computer vision is another area that we're teaming up with Intel around that's underneath the AI. Digital twin, yet another one where Worldwide and Intel are teaming up to provide that. So there are many areas of AI I wanted to touch on to close out in, and the AI proving ground is set up to help in all those areas as well.
No, you said it very well, Matt. And the one thing you did, and I want to dive into too, and I'm curious for Radhika your thoughts on that. But it's the data piece, right? Whether you're doing generative AI, large language models, deep learning, you're building a digital twin or computer vision, like all of these types of things, they require immense amount of data. The data that is I like to call it the lifeblood of an organization. I've been a storage guy in my past life, but definitely the data that has to live in these storage devices is key. And managing and organizing that data, as we close things out, I'd like to say that's one thing that is top of mind, I think, for a lot of our customers. The immense amount of data, the data processing, governance and organization, and the security around all of that is definitely key. So appreciate your insights, Matt. Radhika, love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I'm so glad Matt brought up this notion that it's not just generative AI, right? Because honestly, I think the last 18 months, that's all we've been hearing. But the reality is that's a very small sliver, right, of the available AI workloads out there. And it's important to realize that, the large majority of these other workloads still exist. They're still delivering value, right? So yes, there's a lot of, I think, pressure within organizations to have kind of this, what are we doing with AI, with this AI strategy? But the reality is you have to look beyond just generative AI, right? How can you leverage some of these existing AI workloads and tools and capabilities that are out there is number one, right? The couple of other closing thoughts, right? I think one thing that I'll probably say, and I kind of touched on this a little bit before, and that's this notion of IT leaders and enterprises just being ready to embrace AI everywhere, right? Because whether we want it or not, it is imperative, and it's going to be there everywhere. And it's up to the organization how much they want to get on board with that and how prepared they are, right? And I think to be able to stay competitive, you have to be set up to be able to address that from cloud to edge to client. So that's, I think, one piece that is often overlooked. And again, kind of going back to the proving ground, right? That's the environment which allows us to look at these end-to-end AI pipelines and workloads, right? How does an AI-based solution look? And what does it deliver from a customer standpoint? The second piece I'll say is lately we've seen a lot of talk and a lot of pressure around having this AI strategy, but I would encourage kind of enterprises to be outcome driven, right? What do you want to get out of that AI solution that you want to implement? It's really about what's that business outcome that it's driving versus just having an AI strategy, and then be a bit thoughtful and a little bit have some patience in how we're executing to it, because a well thought out AI strategy it's a multi-year investment, right, of time and resources. So you start with your POC, but for it to really have that impact, we have to take it from stage to stage to stage. And I think that's where the expertise of Worldwide and Intel comes in, right? Being able to guide the customer through that journey of, how do you go from something small and then take the next step to expand it, and then the next step, and then the next step. And now, after X amount of months and years, you now have kind of an enterprise-wide deployment of AI that is actually bearing fruit. So, when done right, it can truly yield a large return on the investment, but it has to be thought through, right? It can't be something that's just done because it's the immediate need of the hour, right? So that's what I would kind of have enterprises just think through and come talk to us, and let us help you implement the best strategies that are out there for your organization.
Oh, that's great feedback, and always, like, love working with Intel. I would say, when we look at the way we do things at Worldwide, and you talked about those outcomes, all of these clients are looking to become more competitive in their own right space. We talk about these outcomes, and the one thing I would say that the AI Proving Ground is a very integral piece of the actual pipeline of our discussion, right, where we talk about the outcomes that customers are trying to drive to, all the way through the experiences that they want, the solutioning, and the things that they're trying to get out, whether it's a digital twin or generative AI, but ultimately, computer vision, whatever the AI function is that they're looking to push themselves to excel. We're Worldwide, along with Intel, are capable of having those conversations and consultative conversations around data strategy as well. 10 years in data science. I mean, we've been doing this for quite some time. And I'm loving the fact that we're marrying now the hardware piece, the high performance architecture piece to those outcomes, and we're able to help showcase our capabilities from an organizational standpoint to these customers end to end, where we can consult, help drive outcomes all the way back to the testing of the HPA, and working together with Intel on that. So really appreciate both of your time today. I think the discussion was great, and I couldn't be more excited about the new year and what we're going to get accomplished together. So thank you both.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure. Always fun talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.